Okay, good afternoon, my dear colleagues. Good afternoon, everyone. Please tell me, can you see my screen? Can you hear me? Can you please confirm that, my dear colleagues? Welcome back to our free workshop analyzing some cases in English, obviously regarding our major. Thank you very much for your commitment, for your participation. Remember, we are here among English teachers, and your participation here is really important. Okay, as you can see in my screen, you have there the QR for my YouTube channel. If you want, you can get the membership. It is just for soles, or the high membership ticket. It is for 15 soles, and you can see a lot of videos, a lot of previous workshops that we have worked with our colleagues. Okay, my dear colleagues, let's start with this free workshop. Give me a second, please, here to share my screen correctly. And the previous workshop we were analyzing until number 13. And now today, let's continue with case number 14. Okay, let's read it together, my dear colleagues. The dynamic will be just to read the cases in English, and then you will have a couple of minutes to analyze it individually. And obviously, later we will analyze it together why it is the final answer. Okay, my dear colleagues, let's read it together. Case number 14. Rocio's students are going to work on a speaking activity about Creole music. Before the activity, she wants to activate their prior knowledge by using gamification in that stage. Besides, she is teaching her lesson virtually. Considering her strategy, what is the best activity to carry out? Letter A. Rocio give a memory game activity just to identify three words regarding the topic. Students have to create their own sentences with the words Creole music, guitar, and singers. After that, they share their sentences in the chat box in order to have a general idea about what to say. Letter B. Rocio asks her students to find some interesting videos on the internet regarding Creole music. After that, the students have to discuss a summary of the videos. Finally, the teacher collects their transcriptions virtually for appropriate feedback. Letter C. Rocio shows an international speech related to Creole music from the internet where students will find interesting ideas. They work in breakout rooms in order to discuss the speech in a deep way. After that, they share their conclusions in the principal virtual meeting. Okay, my dear colleagues. You know, we have a beautiful question. We have an interesting question to, first of all, to dismiss one option. And the question is the following one, okay? If you had to dismiss one alternative, what would it be? Okay, my dear colleagues, with that question, obviously you will be closer to the final answer. If you have to dismiss one alternative, what would it be? Okay, my dear colleague, thank you very much, colleague Janela. You have 1 minute, all of you, 1 minute. First of all, to write in the chat box your dismissing option. Okay, my dear colleagues, just 1 minute. Go ahead, you can start. Okay, time's up, my dear colleagues. Let's analyze it here together. Please, everybody writes in the chat box your dismissing option. If you had to dismiss one alternative, what would it be, my dear colleagues? A, B, or C? Definitely, we have to, first of all, we have to identify the keywords. Sometimes you will find the keywords in bold. Yeah. You will find the words in bold. Yeah, normally. Here we have prior knowledge, for example. Here we have gamification. And we have obviously here the best alternative. Okay, the question is, where do you find that pedagogical action? Okay, or that pedagogical process, prior knowledge, where do you find it? At the beginning of the lesson, during lesson, or post lesson or post activity? That's the question, my dear colleagues. Yeah, we have to identify the stages. That is part of our strategy to get to the final answer. So definitely here, we know that prior knowledge, it is at the beginning of the lesson. Yeah. For future cases, if you find one alternative, yeah, you are sure that one alternative, the activity is perfect, it fits better for during activity or post activity, we are sure now to dismiss that option. Okay, my colleagues. You know, prior knowledge is to get how much do you know about the topic and to get information about their own experiences. Okay, that is prior knowledge. And normally we find it at the beginning of the lesson. So if you had to dismiss one alternative, what would it be? Thank you very much, colleague Martin, colleague Joel. What about the rest? Come on, you can do it. Colleague Janela, if you had to dismiss one alternative, what would it be? Sometimes the verbs can give you clues, yeah, can give you some keywords. For example, here we have Rocio give, Rocio asks, Rocio shows. Okay. Okay, we know here that the activity is pre-activity before. Here we have an extra keyword to analyze in a deep way that case. So I agree with you. I agree with you, colleague Gianella. Yeah, that we have to dismiss first of all letter C. Okay, Rocio shows an international speech related to Creole music from the internet. Okay, first of all, that you have to take into consideration, my dear colleagues, is that they have the material, they have the information, they have that information about Creole music, for example, yeah, in that international speech. And remember, that is not prior knowledge. That's not prior knowledge, my dear colleagues, yeah, because they have the information. Remember, prior knowledge is your own experiences. How much do you know about that topic? So, from the internet, yeah, from the internet, it is okay to develop the research skills, but for future activities. Okay, my dear colleagues, it is okay, but for future activities. For example, it is perfect for during listening. Yeah, it is perfect for during speaking. Yeah, to get information. Perfect. They work in breakout rooms in order to discuss speaking. Okay, they are working with speaking most of the time in the previous activity listening. Okay. After that, they share their conclusions in the principal virtual meeting. Okay, conclusions about what? About my own experiences or about the international speech from the internet? Okay, you have to take into consideration that, Marie Collie, yeah? You have to take into consideration that. We want one activity that is before attacking the material, okay? For that reason, we dismiss letter C. Perfect. Nice. Now, between letter A and letter B, what is the final answer, my dear colleagues, related to the teacher's aim? Please, everybody writes in the chat box your final answer. Come on, you can do it. Ideas? Thank you very much, colleague Janela. What about the rest? Colleague Jonathan, colleague Martin, colleague Joel, colleague Yvette. Perfect. Class for you. Congratulations, my dear colleagues. Yeah. Final answer must be letter A. Teacher, what is the reason to consider that letter A is the final answer or the best activity? Here we have an extra keyword, gamification. Remember, gamification, it means to bring games related to the topic. Remember, if I just bring board games, it's not enough, for example, to consider gamification. Gamification is to bring some dynamics, some games, to learn the material related to the topic. Okay, my dear colleagues. Okay, so what is the reason to dismiss letter B? Rocio asked her students to find some interesting videos. Again, it is not prior knowledge. Okay, again, it is similar to this, to get information from a book, from the internet, etc. It is not prior knowledge. Okay, my dear colleagues, just with that information. After that, the students discuss, okay, again, the speaking. Finally, the teacher collects the transcriptions. To collect their transcriptions virtually, perhaps it is post-activity with that information, okay? Let's imagine that for a different activity, letter B, it's perfect, okay? It's perfect, but it's not the teacher's aim. We have to be objective with future cases to identify the teacher's aim. For that reason, we dismiss letter B as well. Final answer, letter A. Memory game, just with the game, to activate their prior knowledge with some keywords. They will create their own sentences, yeah? In order to have a general idea, it is at the beginning of the lesson. Perfect. That's it, just planning skills at the beginning of the lesson. For that reason, final answer is letter A. Okay, congratulations, my dear colleagues. Is it clear? Are you ready for the following case? Yeah? Yeah, thank you very much, colleague Joel. What about the rest? Are you ready for the following case? Are you there? Sure, nice. For sure. Let's continue with the following case. Case number 15. Okay, let's read it together. I think that I can make it bigger. Let me see. Yeah, I hope so. Yes. Let's read it together, my dear colleagues. Case number 15. Rocio's students are going to enhance their speaking skills by using conventions in an interview. Regarding the teacher's aim, what is the best activity to carry out? Letter A. She asked her students to write an interview script between a candidate and a journalist. After that activity, they have to perform their interview in front of the class. Letter B. She asked her students to read an essay about how to get succeed in an interview. Then, with that knowledge, they have to create their own interview to perform meet in front of the class. Letter C. She shows them some formal and informal expressions. She asks them to choose the most suitable ones in order to use them in their interview by switching roles. Okay, teacher, I don't know what is conventions. Don't worry, we are here to practice. First of all, I will ask you for your dismissing option, okay, my dear colleagues? If you had to dismiss one alternative, what would it be? 1 minute, and then we will analyze it together, okay, my dear colleagues? Go ahead, you can start. Please write in the chat box with the number, okay, to understand your dismissing option. Go ahead, 1 minute. Okay, let's analyze it here together, my dear colleagues. Please, everybody writes in the chat box your dismissing option. What do you say, my dear colleagues? If you had to dismiss one alternative, what would it be? First of all, I want you to write in the chat box your dismissing option. Thank you very much, colleague Jonathan, Yvette, Martin, Joel. Nice. What about the rest? First of all, one option to dismiss. Remember, by following that strategy, you get closer to the final answer. You have the 50% of the case in your hands. Come on, what about the rest? If you had to dismiss one alternative to delete, what would it be? Thank you very much. Okay, let's explain. Thank you very much for your answers here in the chat box. Now, let's analyze it here together. Teacher, let's imagine that I don't know the meaning of that word, of that technical word, conventions. Let's imagine that. Perhaps we can identify extra keywords. For example, here we have speaking skills. Okay, if I find one alternative that they are not working with speaking skills, well, in that case, I can dismiss that option, yes? So, for that reason, yeah, to delete, I agree with you, my dear colleagues, to delete letter B, for example, yeah? Yes, to delete, to dismiss letter B. She asked her students to read an essay. Teacher, but at the same time they are developing, they are improving their reading skills. You can say, yeah, I agree with you. But as I said it before, remember, we have to be objective with the teacher's aim. Okay, but recall it, we can find conventions in a reading activity. We can find conventions in a writing activity. That's okay. But remember, the case is asking for a speaking skill. So we have to make the balance, an average, yeah? Here they are working an average of the activity by reading about how to get succeed an interview. Okay, that's perfect, but with a different skill. Then, with that knowledge, they have to create their own interview to perform it in front of the class. We can say that they are working 50% reading and 50% speaking. Yeah, that's okay, but perhaps we will find a better option. Yeah, just with the keyword speaking skills. Let's imagine that we don't know conventions. We don't know the meaning of the word conventions. Okay, now between letter A and letter C, what will be your final answer, my dear colleagues? A or C? Okay, thank you very much, colleague Yvette, colleague Janela, colleague Martin. What about the rest? Thank you very much, colleague Yvette. Final answer. Now, teacher, what are conventions? Conventions are the rules, the kind of, the type of activity. Remember, if I ask you, what kind of music do you like? You can say, I like rock, I like pop, I like salsa, etc. That is the characteristic of that kind of music, okay? If I ask you, what kind of movies do you like? For example, you can say, I like horror movies, fictions, actions, etc. So those, we can find the characteristics of for a specific music or for a specific video. The same situation when we are teaching or studying English. We can find specific rules or characteristics for a type of something, a type of activity. For example, we have some rules, characteristics to write a letter. We have some rules or characteristics to write an essay. We have some rules to give an interview. We have some rules to create an article, etc. We can continue. Okay, my colleagues, those are the conventions, the rules that we have to respect related to the specific English product. Okay, my colleagues. So, between letter A and letter C, the final answer here must be letter C. Yes, Letter A, she asked her students to write an interview script. Okay, to write. Between a candidate and a journalist. The activity is perfect, the activity is great, but perhaps the skill, it is far away from the teacher's aim. After that activity, they have to perform their interview in front of the class. Again, the same situation. They are twins. Letter A and letter B, they are twins. We can say 50% writing and 50% speaking. Yeah. I'm not saying that letter A and letter B, they are wrong. Yeah, we can work, but in a different context. Yeah, we can work with them in a different context. Final answer, letter C. She shows in some formal and informal expressions. Characteristics for formal or informal. She asked them to choose the most suitable ones. Okay, we have to respect the conventions. If those expressions, it's okay to use in a formal conversation or in a informal conversation, yeah, in order to use them in their interview by switching roles. Perfect. For that reason, my dear colleagues, the final answer must be letter C. Yeah, nice. Okay, yes, yeah, expressions could be formal and informal expressions. They are the key words. Well, in that case, yeah. Excellent. Nice. Congratulations, my dear colleagues. Are you ready for another case? Mm-hmm. What do you say, my dear colleagues? Okay, one more. Before that, please let me invite you on Monday. This Monday, we have our fifth workshop analyzing some cases. That will be the same dynamic, colleagues, like this free workshop. We will explain some general concepts slowly, and we decided to explain some things in Spanish in our private WhatsApp group after the workshop. Yeah, if you have any doubt, any question, we can discuss those questions in our private WhatsApp group. But during the case, I want you to keep in touch with the language, and we will explain the general rules and strategies to get to the final answer. Obviously, we will analyze different cases, talking different topics, yeah, take into consideration different topics from the ministry. Okay, my colleagues, I hope you to be part of that great group. And on Monday, we will start with our fifth group. Okay, my colleagues. So please, I invite you to be part of that group. Nice. Congratulations, my dear colleagues. Let's continue with the following case. Case number 16. Nice. Let's read it together, my dear colleagues. Case number 16. Okay, here we go. Rocio's students are going to enhance their reading skills with an article regarding jobs. She wants her students to develop their categorizing skills in the activity. Taking her purpose into account, what is the most suitable activity to carry out? Letter A. She asks her students to read the article quickly. Furthermore, they have to add some headlines to each paragraph of the article in order to understand better the information about jobs. Letter B. She asks her students to write some general ideas from the article. They have to use their own words to convey the message about interesting jobs correctly. Letter C. She asks her students to find out what are the principal aspects of the article. They have to practice them in pairs orally in order to get familiar with indoor and outdoor jobs. The same dynamic with your colleagues. First of all, I will ask you for your dismissing option, okay? You have 1 minute. Yeah, first of all, 1 minute. Remember, our strategy is to identify the keywords. And with that in mind, it will be easier for you to get to the final answer. Go ahead. You go first. You can start. Okay, we are back on track, my dear colleagues. Let's analyze it here together. Case number 16. If you had to dismiss one alternative, what would it be? Please, everybody writes in the chat box your dismissing option. Thank you very much, colleague Janela, colleague Martin, Jonathan, Yvette. Yes, I agree with you that first of all, we have to dismiss letter B. What is the reason to dismiss letter B? Rocio's students are going to enhance, improve their reading skills. Okay, more suitable categorizing skills. So she asked her students to write some general ideas. The intention here is not to improve their writing skills, to improve their categorizing skills. Okay. So we can say that for that reason, it is letter B, it's okay, but for a different context, yeah? They have to use their own words to convey. Okay, here we can say that they are trying to develop their summarizing skills, their own words to convey the message about interesting jobs correctly. Yeah, could be writing and different sub skills, as you can see. Yeah, different sub skills and different skills at the same time as well. Okay, for that reason, we dismiss letter B. Now you are sure to dismiss that option. Between letter A and letter C, my dear colleagues, what is your final answer? A or C? Please, everybody writes in the chat box your final answer. Without fear, remember, we are here to practice. Thank you very much, colleague Jonathan, colleague Yvette, colleague Jess, Martin, Joel, Janela. Nice. Thank you very much for your participation. Congratulations. I agree with you. Definitely here, the final answer must be letter A. Teacher, but perhaps letter C is a great activity to improve their reading skills. Yeah, I agree with you. But principal aspects of the article could be scheming. Yeah, could be scheming. It's okay. But again, the case is not asking for scheming. They have to participate in pairs or orally, okay, speaking. Yeah, speaking colleagues. Even they are attacking the topic, that's great, but remember, but that's not the teacher's aim. For that reason, the final answer must be letter A. Teacher, what is categorizing? Please don't confuse yourself with ordering. Ordering is totally different. Just to organize, yeah, and scramble the words, put the right order of the sentences, paragraph, text, etc. That's it, the logical sequence, that's ordering. But categorizing is to classify, synonym for classify, colleagues. That's it. So we classified by adding headlines for to each paragraph of the article. That's it, my dear colleagues. That is categorizing. For that reason, final answer is letter A. Okay, my dear colleagues. Nice. Congratulations, my dear colleagues. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you very much for your participation.